Is LUMINES Arise a dazzling experience in VR that you should play, or is it a frustrating, panic-inducing puzzle game that you should skip? Welcome to GameList Plus. My name is Josh, and today I am reviewing LUMINES Arise for PlayStation 5, as well as PSVR2. As usual, I will talk about all the different aspects of the game, giving each a rating between 1 and 10, 10 being flawless, and at the end I'll tell you whether or not you should play or skip the game. LUMINES Arise is a heart-pumping fusion of addictive puzzle gameplay, thumping audio, and eye-popping visuals. So when you first see this game, you might think, hey, this looks like Tetris. If you've never heard of LUMINES or played the PlayStation Portable version or the older versions of the game, you might not have any idea how different from Tetris it actually is. And I specifically want to tell you guys about the PSVR2 version versus the PS5 version. There were multiple LUMINES games in the past, and they all have the same setup. So instead of creating lines like you would in Tetris, you're creating squares. So you want to get 2x2 squares or 4x2 squares, any combinations of multiples of squares. And the bigger, the better, and it gives you combos, and then you can do power-ups to eliminate more blocks on the board. The graphics in this game are honestly really beautiful, if not varied. They go from a very intensive, beautiful particle effects to being very kind of static and basic, and some of the designs are a little bit like cookie cutter in a way. Not to say that's a bad thing, it kind of goes along with the style of LUMINES, if you've ever played the previous games. So the graphics all around are really, really polished, really nice, great particle effects, great frame rates. It's just really got a nice flow to it. When you're in the regular screen mode, when you're playing on the PS5, it's great. It zooms in and out of the screen, and it's got a definite variety of angles and looks. You can actually adjust all those settings to make it a little bit more comfortable, because it can be really intense for some people. In fact, one of the things for me that was difficult about the game was the graphics being so varied and so active that it's kind of hard sometimes to really focus in on the actual puzzling of the game itself, where the blocks, because you only have two types of blocks. There's one shape and another shape, and one color and another color. And a lot of times, honestly, it's hard to tell them apart. This game is definitely going to be very challenging for a lot of people when some of these shapes are so close together and the colors are actually not too far apart as well. And if you're fully colorblind, there are settings, there are ways to play this without having any issue, but I wanted to play it just the straight normal way. I'd be playing one level and I'd be struggling to create all the blocks that I need to break away and keep this whole thing flowing. Then it would switch to the next level, and it would be a lot easier to differentiate between the two types of blocks. So then all of a sudden, even though I had the exact same board that I was just playing on, it became a lot easier to make the combinations and erase all the stuff that needed to go as I played. So it's strange how the graphics themselves can change the gameplay as you go. But all around, the graphics look really nice. They're very crisp, very clean. The frame rates are great. So all around, I give the graphics for this game a solid 8. If you're enjoying this video, hit that like button. It really helps my channel a lot. And also don't forget to hit subscribe so you can see all my upcoming videos. Next, I'll talk about the gameplay itself. There's a whole different kind of dynamic to it than Tetris, so do not expect Tetris. And in fact, it's one of the big downfalls of the game for me personally in terms of the actual execution of gameplay. And I don't know if that's entirely because my brain is just so wired for Tetris that it makes this game really difficult for me to be good at. So the game also has burst mechanics where you charge all the way up to at least 50%, and then once it hits 50% to 100%, you can trigger the button to engage burst. Then it triggers a temporary state where squares that are formed in one of two colors won't clear for a short period. The number above the timeline then indicates how many passes you have left before it clears the burst color. So you build a bigger and bigger block to ultimately destroy as much as you can and give yourself the highest burst you possibly can. And of course, there are trophies for all that stuff too. My criticism is that I can play it and I beat it, but it's definitely not the same kind of easy lock in and play kind of a vibe that I get from Tetris. Really, it came down to the PSVR2 visuals and the experience all around for me, because just like Tetris Effect Connected, it is super immersive and really fun to play when you are really into it and you hit that flow state, which I found to be harder to get than I would have liked personally. I really enjoyed this game, but I enjoyed it much more on PSVR2 than I did on the flat screen. And ultimately that came down to me enjoying the experience of the game more than the gameplay itself. I found it frustrating
as you build up the level, it would be increasingly harder to think about where you're going to place the next block. Granted, I'm not a pro Lumines player, and I imagine this game will be very satisfying for people who are really good at Lumines, but I personally I only played it on the PSP back in the day, and playing it on the PlayStation 5 flat screen, I found it more frustrating. And when I jumped into the earlier levels, I had to go to easy mode after a while because it got too fast and too challenging for me to actually progress level to level. I guess when it comes down to it, the gameplay is not my favorite. I just have to consider myself a newbie. And I don't consider myself bad at puzzle games, and I don't consider myself bad at, I'm really good at Tetris. Like, I can play Tetris really well and get really far. I've played it my whole life. And maybe that's the detriment to this game for me, is that I am kind of hardwired for Tetris, so it's hard for me to adjust to making blocks versus lines. Maybe I just need to practice and learn the game better. But for me, it was so much challenge that made it less fun. And I feel like Tetris Effect Connected, I have to compare it to that because it's such a similar VR experience. When I played Tetris Effect Connected, I guess it's because I already know how to play Tetris really well, but there was a flow to that game that I would lock into, and it would just go level to level, and I just felt this like sense of excitement as it would advance. That feeling is still there in LUMINES Arise, but it doesn't feel quite as exciting because of having to restart the levels when I would fail miserably over and over again. If you are a Lumines player and you love these games, I have a feeling you're really going to love this. In any case, I'm going to give the gameplay in LUMINES Arise a 6, simply because I just couldn't thoroughly enjoy it the way I wanted to. If there were an extra easy setting, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more because I wanted to be in it for the immersion of the VR more than the challenge. Next, I'll talk about the audio. So the audio is one of the highlights of this game. It sounds incredible. You want to pump this one up nice and loud. The music is by Hidelic and Tatako Ishida. So it's the same exact type of music as Tetris Effect Connected. So it's like a mix of techno, ambient, ethereal music that is really, really cool. Some of the levels are honestly very slow paced and kind of ethereal, and other ones are pulse pounding and loud and clubby. So it's got quite a variety. And one of the cool things is that you can, after you beat the game, go in there and pick out all the tracks that you like the most and put them in a playlist and then play through those. If you're playing on the PSVR2, you definitely want to pop in the earphones, or if you have a really nice surround system, play with the surround system on and the earphones out, which is where I had the most fun because my whole room was pumping like I was in a nightclub with full VR visuals. It's really, truly an awesome experience, and the music is such a core part of that whole thing. Not to mention, just the sound effects are timed out so that when you do the activation and drop the blocks into the slots, it actually times the sound effects to the music. So there's a synchronicity to the whole thing that just sounds and feels great as you play. It's so beautifully done. So all around, I give the audio in LUMINES Arise a solid 9. Now let's talk immersion, which for me was the best part of this game all around because PSVR2 is the way to play this. The immersion in this game in PSVR2 is insanely good. Like I was saying before, having the surround sound system set up in my house, having the headset on and just pumping the music and playing through these levels, it's an experience unlike anything else in VR that I've had. It's like a much brighter, bigger, more visually stunning version of Tetris Effect Connected, but you're playing a totally different puzzle game that is a similar look, if you can just get yourself past the difference of the gameplay itself. So I feel like the immersion factor for this game all around is a solid 8. I have to bring it down from the 9 I would give it for the PSVR2, just because the flat screen version isn't anywhere near as enthralling, but it still looks great and it is very intense. And finally, let's talk replay value. And this is one of those total splits. And I kind of touched on that already. I don't feel like after beating the main version of the game, I'm going to be all that enticed to play it more myself. I feel like I will enjoy playing this a lot more, especially in multiplayer modes and stuff online in PSVR2 mode. But people who like Lumines will probably play the hell out of this game. I just don't feel like it's quite as enthralling to me in terms of picking up and playing regularly, because for me, it's all about the PSVR2 version. But if I want to jump into that experience, just like Tetris Effect Connected, I'll play it from time to time when I just want to have some nice puzzling fun. But at the same time, I feel like I'll probably just play Tetris Effect because I like the gameplay so much more. So I guess replay value in this game for hardcore players, that's going to be more around a 9 because they love their Lumines. I am not big on the gameplay myself, so for me, I give the replay value a 6. So what is the verdict? This is an odd verdict for me because I personally really liked the game in PSVR2, but I didn't love it on PS5. I found it frustrating because I wanted it to flow better. I wanted to completely get lost in that immersive experience more, but I found it so challenging just to keep up with the gameplay, even on easy mode. So I don't know if they need to just add a even easier mode or just slow down the speed of the blocks. I just didn't love this game the way I wanted to. It's not a bad game, and Luminous players are going to be thrilled to play it, I'm sure. But overall, I think the game is great. I just don't think that it is amazing. It's a good quality PSVR2 game that is worth jumping into if you want some serious immersion and puzzling. I'm just going to give the game an overall score of a 7 because I feel like that's fair. It's a good game, but it's not an amazing game. The other question is, should you play or skip the game? If you've never played a Luminous game and you are getting it for PS5, I say skip it. But that being said, playing the PSVR2 version is phenomenal and is such a great immersive full experience. So I would say play it if you have a PSVR2. So all around, LUMINES Arise is a really fun game. Not my favorite thing that I've played on the PS5 in terms of puzzle games, but it is a really great experience in PSVR2, so I definitely highly recommend it for that. But I would wait for a discount. But you know, that's just what I think. What do you think? Have you played the previous Luminous games and are you planning to pick this one up? Do you think I just need more practice to get better at this game and that it's worth it ultimately in the end? Or do you think it's just the type of gameplay that I'm not into? And what is your favorite VR puzzle game? Let's talk about it in the comments below. If you've made it all the way to the end and you've enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe so you can see all my upcoming content. I have a list of the top 10 puzzle games for Quest 3, a lot of which are also on PSVR 2. You can check that out right here. That's it for today's video though. Thank you so much for watching. Go try something new. I'll see you soon on GameList Plus.